Hey guys, welcome back to the Football Draft podcast. I'm here with Ross and James, and the season may be over, but we've still got plenty of things we can discuss. And after a disappointing week for a United fan as myself, losing against Villarreal, we thought it'd be a good time to discuss Ole's time as Manchester United manager. And just to start us off, I'm going to ask Ross what he thought of the current season that just happened.
Oh, well, what a devastating end. Listen, it's been a good enough season. Well, in ways it has, but it's been promising from, you look at the way we started. 15th or something we were at one stage, and no one thought we would end up second. And I know that you can blame that on teams and their downfall. You look at Tottenham's terrible season, Arsenal's terrible season. I know James will agree. And you look at all their teams' downfall. We did make use of that, and we capitalised on that, and look where we got. But I just feel that it was evident from that night in Poland that there's so many holes in this team that need sorting. But at the same time, I think Ole needs credited for where he's taken this United team so far. We're second behind arguably the best team in the world right now. So that has to be credited and that has to be recognised. So I think that's successful in a way, but overall this season hasn't been successful because there's still no silverware, and it's another final that we haven't capitalised on. So it's a toss up for me really, but I think that Ole's done a good job so far. I don't know, James, what you kind of make of Ole's kind of season generally.
Look, I think you mentioned it there, then that's exactly it. I'm going to bring back, I'm not sure if you guys watched it, but an interviewer asked Ibrahimovic, was like, do you think Manchester United have improved since he left? And he was like, yes, I think it's a better team. But the thing is, when I was there, we won trophies, and this team hasn't. And that's ultimately what it's come down to. Now, if Ole won the Europa League, great season, finished second, Champions League, everything's amazing. Everyone would not be criticizing Ole or discussing his future at all. But just because of that one penalty miss, it's like, oh my god, we have to start looking at the future and, is Ole the right man for the job? I think that's a bit reactive, to be honest, rather than what's the opposite of that? Reactive instead of analyzing this. I just feel like it's very reactive and not actually analysing whether Ole is the proper man for the job on a bigger perspective.
Yeah, it was an odd season, and even if Man United won the penalty shootout, a lot of people still would have been saying it was still kind of embarrassing having to go penalties against Villarreal team. So I think it's kind of weird to think that like the whole season was kind of dependent on a De Gea penalty. But I don't know. We'll see what happens next season. But it does kind of lead me on. I was wanting to ask you guys what you think Ole's biggest successes and his biggest failures as United manager. Obviously, it's easy to say his biggest failure is he hasn't won trophies yet. But just on the basis of where we were when we took the job and where we are now, like what do you think his biggest strong points and his weak points are in the job? So just either of you just want to kick it off with this.
I'll start that one. I think his biggest success is actually riding the wave, to be honest. Ole has had very tough times where fans and the media have been calling him to get sacked. But he took it on. Not many managers can bring back the dressing room from that sort of low point. I remember there was times where literally people were saying if Ole loses the next game, he's out. But he's got through that, and he's brought Manchester United to a second place finish, and he's stabilised the club. You look at before Ole came in, you were switching managers every season. Jose Mourinho, who came in, yes, he was there for 2 years, but you could always tell that there was something about the players and the team that just wasn't quite right. I don't get that feeling with Ole. So I think that's his biggest success at United.
Yeah, and going on from that, that's a really interesting point. I think while Jose won the Europa League, which is something that Ole hasn't done yet, I think that maybe not his biggest success, but arguably one of them is how much of an impact he's had on individual players. You look at Luke Shaw having the best season of his career under Ole. The players' morale and how they're playing. You've seen the best of Paul Pogba in a United shirt for me under Ole. You look at Edinson Cavani and that signing, bringing him in. Bruno Fernandes, who's the talisman of that team now. So I think it's very naive to look at this United team and just go, they haven't won trophies, no progress, that's it, Ole's tactically inept. I think that's a really naive stance to take, because we have made progress, but I feel like this season, this is now make or break. No matter what Ole does now in the league places, if he doesn't get silverware and he starts to drop, I kind of feel like that'll be his time to go. But for me, really, I think a lot of it isn't his fault. You know, we've talked on the podcast before about the protests and the unrest within our fan base at our ownership. You know, I think that Ole has done a really good job, as James rightly said, riding that wave. You know, he's had to deal with a lot that other Man United managers haven't had to deal with. You know, and as a former player, I think a lot of it is hard to take. So for me, really, I think he's been successful in keeping the club grounded and, you know, through this troublesome time. And for me, really, and I think in a couple of weeks we're going to be, you know, chatting about this, but I think he needs to be backed. You know, he has shown that he can take this club to that level, but he just needs the players to be able to do that. You know, and there's, you as I mentioned before, you've seen in Poland, there's so many holes in this team, but I think that's out of Ole's control. So for me, really, I think that he needs to be in a lot of credit for where he's taken the team thus far. Now, you could argue then a failure in his part, and which I would agree, is his for being a substitute and for being an impact sub. You've seen it, you know, in Munich in '99 or Barcelona in '99. For a super sub, he's terrible at using subs. You know, like at 90 minutes in Gdansk, didn't use one sub. Like that, you know, that has to be recognised. That's a failure on his part. You know, he should be seeing, and for me, really, that you know, the excuse of, oh, you know, he doesn't know, he has no one on the bench to use. Van de Beek's a great player. Bring him on. Bring the Nemanja Matic on. There are players that you can use on that bench, and he chose not to use them in 90 minutes. And for me, really, throughout the whole match, well, not maybe the whole match, but start of the second half, Villarreal deserved to win that game. Yeah, and I'll hold my hat. They really, really did. So for me, I think some of his in-game management and some of the coaching at this club could be improved. And I think that's an area where we're seeing a lot of the holes more clearly. You know, you look at Liverpool when Klopp first took over. Liverpool had so many holes and lack of quality in players. But the coaching and Klopp's in-game management helped them to win games that sometimes they didn't even deserve to win. It's those type of games that make you Premier League champions and Champions League winners. Do you know what I mean? So it's that really that I think Ole needs to drastically improve on moving forward for next season. Don't know if he's agree.
I think his failure is more so something he needs to improve on. He needs to be a bit more refined. Now, I'm going to use Ross's example in the Europa League final here and his lack of ability to make substitutions. It's very easy to say that, oh, it's fine, you know, these are just very minor details within a manager. But it really is that fine line that
it's
separates. It really is that fine line that separates whether you win a trophy or not. You have to cut it out sooner rather than later, or I can't see him being United manager in 2 years' time if he's still not won anything.
Yeah, I mean, this club's built on silverware. This club's built on success. So if that's not gonna continue, then he can't be. And we've been starved of that in recent years. You know, so I think we need Ole to make that step up in that way. So listen, I personally feel right that, you know, I think Ole could stay at this club long term, but I just think that he needs to be backed, and he needs to improve the way that he assesses a game mid-match. Do you know what I mean? Some of his management, take for example, and this is sorry, very minor, but look at Cavani coming on against Southampton. No, we were losing. I think it was 2-0 we were losing, and Cavani comes on and is the key man in helping us win that game 3-2. I said after that game, that's excellent in-game management. to assess, bringing on that key player, that talisman to come on and have that impact. I just think we haven't seen enough of that. And I think that's what's led to some poor results, towards the end of the season. So, yeah.
Just lastly, before we move on, I think it really came down to Ole freezing in the final. If that final was a game in the Premier League against a mid-table side, I think he would have made a few substitutions by 90 minutes, to be honest. But because it was a final, and maybe he lacks experience in finals, he froze. He didn't know what to do.
But I mean, there's been so many semi-finals and finals at this club. He said so many. So I personally, I don't think for me it's a lack of experience in finals and semi-finals. I think for me, it's just his. I think he the team that he puts in the team sheet is the one that he wants to stick to. Is it stubbornness? Is it arrogance? I couldn't put my finger on it, but it's definitely something that needs to be improved going on next season.
Absolutely, I agree with what you both were saying. He's had a few successes, like his man management has been a massive key point in getting players like Luke Shaw and even Paul Pogba, because he didn't want to be there when Mourinho was there, but he looks happy now and things like that. But then, like you said, in the final and his substitutions sometimes in games, it can lead to us missing out on points, or as what happened just a week ago, losing a final. But I think it did kind of go down to what Ross just mentioned on about maybe a sense of arrogance in the team. He maybe thought that the players on the pitch he had should have strolled to success in a way, thinking about where Villarreal were placed in La Liga, and maybe they thought they were a bit lucky to get to the final and things like that. But he'll learn from that, and he'll only grow from that experience. And I think next season we will see even more improvement from United. But I guess, as we're talking about him trying to get success, another question I had about all this time United was, do you guys think that he is capable of taking United to Premier League glory and lifting that trophy while being United manager?
If you ask me that right now, no. If you ask me that January this year, yes. It's again, he is capable, but I just think that recent games have kind of showed me that there are a lot of flaws in his management style. So to me, really, he seems like a new manager. Like he's managed Malta and he's managed these other teams. He went down with Cardiff when they get relegated. So it's not like he's brand new. But I don't know if you feel the same. It feels like he's a new manager. He feels like an Arteta in the fact that he's just recently got into management when he hasn't. He's been doing it for years. So I think that's actually that's a bad thing. You look at Tuchel there. Tuchel coming into Chelsea, having an instant impact and winning the Champions League. Like, you could never dream about that under Ollie. That's just, So for me, really, I kind of don't want to admit it, but I don't really see us becoming the United we were under Ollie. I think that's going to take another manager with more quality. But what Ollie's done so far has to be credited as amazing, because he's taken us from a terrible team to a team that was arguably title challengers in January of this year. That has to be recognised. But is he capable of winning the Premier League? Yes. But do I think he's going to do it? No.
I have to agree on that one. I don't think you can win the Premier League with Ole in charge. And Ross was saying how he still feels like a new manager. Well, P.S. the elephant in the room. It's because he's not won a trophy. That's why he still feels new. And I hate to keep mentioning it, but it always comes down to the fact that he's not won a trophy. And that's why we think he lacks that cutting edge. But the positive side to look at it is, when he does, or if he does win that trophy, it can change a manager. Like, a difference.
It just takes one.
It takes one, and like, it almost unlocks this new level of potential.
Yeah.
It's just whether you are patient enough or whether it's going to happen at all. That's the issue.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm very happy to continue with another season under Ollie. I'm not an Ollie out. I'm very much behind this manager, and I think as a United fan, you kind of have to be. You have to back this manager because of what he's done so far. But at the same time, if I was sitting here at this point again next season and we still haven't won anything, we've come maybe second or third again and we haven't won anything, part of me thinks we need change. We need a better manager. So I think it's, as I said before, it's make or break this season for him to prove that he is a title winning manager and he can do that as Man United manager.
I'm going to add some controversy, not just for effect, but because I genuinely believe this. But I think that if he is backed this summer and if we get the targets that we've been linked with, for example, Sancho, Kieran Trippier, Varane, and potentially a defensive midfielder, but that's if that happens. I believe if he gets at least 3 of those signings, I see us actually challenging for the title next season. And I believe that in a couple years' time, we could win the Premier League with Solskjaer as manager. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's just my view on it. I think I've seen enough improvement and enough quality in certain times of the season under certain situations that I think that just with 3/4 new players, quality players, we could actually be up there with City, Liverpool, whoever else, Chelsea next season, and be challenging, and I think we will see United lift a trophy. Not going to say which one, I can't say right now, but I think United will win a trophy next season.
I don't know. I don't think the problem lies within the players. It's the manager. Ole doesn't give me that.
No. I think the problem, the majority of it actually is in the players, and the lack of quality in this team. As much as I would be the first to criticize all these tactics and his in-game management, I think that the majority of our problems lie in the lack of quality in key areas. I mean, if we go into this summer and don't get a proper CDM, a Coop Miners or an Aaron Barry, we're screwed. Like, we're not gonna we're not gonna get second next season without a proper CDM. That McFred pivot, no one's gonna tell me that wins a Premier League. No one's gonna tell me that shouldn't win a Europa League. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? So for me, really, we need strength in key areas, and if we get that, then that for me is the time to go, okay, right, there's nothing stopping us now other than Ollie's in-game management. That is the time for me to prioritise that. But at the minute, I wouldn't say, it's solely Ollie's in-game management and his tactics that's letting us down, because it's not. The majority of the problems that we're facing as a club is the lack of quality in key areas, definitely.
But I'm not saying that the United team is perfect, but don't you think that bad managers make a good team look bad as well? You look at Chelsea. Who would have thought that they would win the Champions League with Timo Werner in front? Or when Lampard was in charge, we were saying Havertz is a flop, Timo Werner is a flop. Can't remember who else they signed, but everyone else is a flop. And Havertz scores the winning goal in the Champions League final for them, and all of a sudden he's now like one of the best youngsters or playmakers in the league again.
That's a good point, but Solskjaer's a better manager than Lampard. So you're getting a bit more quality there in management. But at the same time, Werner. No, listen, you could say that Werner and Havertz were a flop under Lampard very easily, but they're still, they're quality players, and they needed time. I mean, you look at players that come from different countries. The Premier League's just different gravy, man. It's just such a different league, so it takes time for that. So I wouldn't put that all just on the change in management, but I get your point. I don't know, man. I just think that we just need strength in CDM's definitely priority, and a centre back. And this talk of Jadon Sancho, I'll not get into it, but this talk of Jadon Sancho, man, a part of it really annoys me, because we're building up towards getting a player in a position that we really don't need. That's not the priority for us this season, but I just hope whatever players we get in this season, I hope they're effective.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the summer. But for now, we've already touched on Ole's tactics and stuff like that, but I just want to focus on, just for a few minutes or whatever, just on United's playing style and the way they play. Do you think there's positives in the way we play? Is there negatives? Do you think there's actually an identity or a proper style of play that we actually do? And or like, do you see any flaws in the way we play, and are we relying too heavily on Bruno? I know that's been mentioned and spoken about plenty of times before. And what would you guys change about the way that United play and ways that it can improve?
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen it this season that, arguably, we have relied too heavily on individual performances. I mean, Bruno's a key one. Cavani is another, and Pogba. They're probably the three players that we've relied on, and Greenwood, arguably. So I get that we have had to rely on these players a lot, but I think that this team is starting to take an identity. All these 4-2-3-1, can work, but again, it always seems to come back to we need the players to actually fulfill that identity. That's always been our problem. And I think Maguire has drastically improved this season, and I was really annoyed about his injury. And I think that we have got a shape now, and we've got something that's that we're playing Ollie's way in the way he wants to play. But I just think that we need the players to fulfill that. And I do think that there are a lot of flaws in the way sometimes that we fulfill that. A lot of teams seem to know Ollie's shape and are able to intercept that. I mean, Villarreal, in their build-up play, had us on toast, for the majority of the game in Gdansk. We couldn't, and it was always a mistake for me playing Pogba in the pivot. That was just strange. So I get we are forming an identity, but I think that we need better players to be able to fulfill that. Definitely.
Yeah, I think so. I think the way we set up, it does kind of depend on literally just like you said, like 3 or 4 players. Like do you know how like we've seen Pogba play on the attacking left side? Like we would depend that much on having Rashford play as well. We would force Rashford out to the right, and then that would mean we would drop Greenwood. And obviously, no one wants to see Greenwood dropped. He's proven this season he's a quality young player, and he's got so much potential. And I just think that trying to still squeeze in Pogba, but that means pushing Rashford off to the right wing where he's just not he's not good. He doesn't impact the game from there, and it means that we're dropping one of our best young players. I do think that we do need to fix that situation where we find, if we want to play Pogba, find somewhere where we can play him, but it also means that we don't have to put Rashford out of position and drop players like Greenwood. And I don't know if, I know that the way we're playing, it seems a pretty decent setup, but I would like to get to a point where we can change to a 4-3-3 instead of a 4-2-3-1. I'd rather have it where we can reach a point where we're comfortable playing just one holding midfielder and have like 2 number 8s and not have to play McFred pivot or whatever. Like I don't want to see that because if we were going to win the Premier League, we can't win the Premier League having Fred and McTominay playing in a pivot and always be negative in our defensive ways, thinking that we have to have 6 players that basically have to sit the whole game. I would like to see it where we can have a comfortable back 4, we can have a solid holding midfielder, and then we can have Pogba, Bruno, Van de Beek, Bruno, or whoever, just give them the freedom to go forward and have a front 3 with Rashford, Cavani and Greenwood, or if we get Sancho, fit Sancho in there. I'm not going to get into that as well. It's a ridiculous saga that's been going on for too long, but I just don't want to be stuck in this current setup of having to play 2 holding midfielders, because I think that is at the end of the day going to hold us back. Like you see the way City play, because like they can have Fernandinho sitting or Rodri sitting, and then they can have Gundogan and De Bruyne and just say go off, just do what you want. We have Rodri, we have Fernandinho sitting back, and then that's how Man City are scoring so many goals. That's how they're still getting plenty of clean sheets, conceding far less goals than us. So I just think that we need to reach that point where we can have just one holding midfielder and let 2 number 8s just go forward.
I mean, it's really interesting that, and I think it's something that I would agree with, but there's 2 problems with it. The first one being really that we don't have a holding midfielder, a CDM that can properly hold the line. Arguably, McFred are two players doing one player's job. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, really, that's where I think Koop Miners from AZ Alkmaar would really sort that problem, because he's used to playing that line himself. So then that would allow then for the two number 8s to go and push forward, because we need more of that attacking threat. And the second problem being that Ollie, I feel, constantly needs to cover for our centre-back problem. Maguire is very good, he's very dominant in the air, and he's good at interceptions, but Lindelof is very weak, and arguably, he's a terrible centre-back for me. So I think there's a problem with us relying on the two centre-backs then to hold the defensive line. So, that's where I feel then he prefers to play 4 players there, holding that rock there, instead of 3. So, for me, really, you get in someone like Raphael Varane or Jules Koundé in centre-back pairing with Maguire. You get then Koop Miners in at CDM, or even Declan Rice to hold the line. Then that, for me, then allows for, like, you get 2 number 8s. You get, imagine like a Pogba and Bruno, 2 number 8s flying forward with Rashford on the left and Greenwood on. That makes so much sense for me. But it's just we need to establish that, and I don't know whether that's in all these plans. So I think that's really where we need to improve in that, but I'm just not sure if it's going to happen.
Yeah. James, I know you're not a United fan, and you might not be able to get too in depth or whatever, but what do you think about United setup, even just on basic terms, or however you feel about the way that United play?
Did Ross mention Koop Miners there?
Yeah.
As an option to be CDM?
Yeah.
Do you not think it's a bit naive for this kid to come in and play CDM and all of a sudden you think you can challenge for the league?
I don't think it's naive at all. I mean, he's a good player. I mean, listen, I'm not saying that you bring in Koop Miners and then you automatically play him as the holding midfielder, but it's certainly an improvement for what we've got, man. Declan Rice maybe is probably a better option. He's Premier League proven and he's captain of West Ham. So, arguably, but that Koop Miners fella could be if we could mould him into a very good holding midfielder that could lead to fighting for titles. I don't see what's naive about that.
The dream would be to have Pogba and Bruno Fernandes as the 8s, and then a Declan Rice to come in. But I think it's fair to say that you guys are not going to get Declan Rice. I don't see, I don't see why we couldn't. No, obviously you could, but I'm more looking at the management perspective. I don't think they're going to back Ole like that. I think that would be an Ole signing, but I don't think you'll get him. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone for someone like Van de Beek. I mean, what do you do with him anyway? Like, if he's on the sub, if he's on the bench now, what happens to him when someone like a Declan Rice and a Koop Miners join? So is he gonna play for the under-23s?
No, but I mean, you've kind of mentioned it there yourself. I mean, it's a typical Ollie signing to go for someone like Koop Miners, because we didn't want Van de Beek. Van de Beek was a step down to save the Glazers money. So who's going to be more expensive? English CDM Declan Rice or CDM from AZ Alkmaar Koop Miners? Who's going to be more expensive there? So who are the Glazers going to gravitate towards? So I don't see what's naive about going for him. I think it's actually the perfect Ollie signing, because he's saving money, and I think you're going to get a good enough CDM in Koop Miners.
And just again on the way United play and their style, there was rumours of Wan-Bissaka getting transitioned into a centre back.
No, right. Before I'm seeing Ross's face here, and he doesn't look happy at all. But I'm going to say something, and I thought about it for a while. I didn't like it at first, but when I thought about it for a while, and it's going to mean a change of formation, which I don't think is likely, but I do think there's a way that it could work. Is that if we did play a back 5, I reckon Wan-Bissaka would make a great right-sided centre back. Now, Ross, I know I'm looking at you, right? But if you think
who do you play at right back?
No, but if we get Kieran Trippier,
but listen. Why
are
we even talking about it? We're not going to get Trippier.
Listen, right? But if you think about it, if you've seen plenty of times this season, and I've seen plenty of times this season, when Wan-Bissaka is defending, he has a tendency to come so narrow that it leaves the person behind him free at the back. So if his natural instinct is to go narrow, then if we play him in a back three, then he'll be narrower. So then that could better suit him.
We can't be playing a back five. We just can't.
I know, but
would you play him in a centre back pairing?
No.
Why not? He's good at
because
tackling,
he's a great
good
right
at
back.
good at
why
tackling, intercepting.
Why?
Now, Ross, I think Go ahead.
No, go for it, but
Look,
right,
he's good at tackling, he's good at intercepting, he's good at heading. He can't
yes,
put the cross
and he's good at crossing.
No, he's not.
Ah, James, enough of this. So right. So let me get this straight then. Sorry if I understand you both correctly. You both want Wan-Bissaka to be our right-sided centre back along with Maguire instead of Lindelof.
I'm not saying I want it, but I wouldn't be so much against it to the point where I would hate it. I would think that it could work because, like James has said, he's tall enough, he's good at heading, he's good at intercepting, he's good at tackling, and he's quick. So he does have that recovery pace that he can make a last-ditch tackle.
But I mean, imagine if you did that pre-season and we didn't sign Kieran Trippier. You play with the only other right back we've got is Ethan Laird. We're not playing Ethan Laird to try and challenge for the Premier League. No harm.
Keep Dallo. If we keep Dallo,
save your centre back money, invest it in a right back, and put Wan-Bissaka in centre back.
Ben, to be fair, I forgot we had Dallo. I kind of forgot we still had him. But no. Let's see. To be honest, I get what you mean, and it theoretically it makes a lot of sense. But are we seriously gonna change Wan-Bissaka from a right back to centre back? I really don't think so. I think the important thing for us this season is to get an established CDM, an established centre back, and whoever else then we need to get. But
of course not. Why would you switch Wan-Bissaka to centre back? What are you, a fucking idiot?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, too right, Ben.
Yeah, sorry.
I think he'd be all right at centre back.
I don't knock it.
That's like something I'd get on to James about.
Nah, don't knock it until you've seen it. If we
Jesus.
try in pre-season and it works, I want to see your face because
I'm not gonna. No, it's not gonna work. They're not gonna try it. It's released by the Sun. Don't read the Sun. Yeah. Oh Jesus, God, what an episode. Okay.
Right. I just have one quick question before we end things. I mean, we've spoken plenty about United's setup. We've said that there's certain flaws, and Ross has touched on it. There's holes in the team. So just before we finish, I just don't say a player, but just make a final decision on the positions that you think United need to bring a new player in for. Don't get into players. Don't start an argument or whatever. Just say positions that you think we need, and then that'll be that.
Right back.
Just right back. Nowhere else.
Just right back. You can tell you're an Arsenal fan, sir. No, do you know what? Right back. I mean, listen, it would be nice to get a right back to challenge Wan-Bissaka, but it's not the priority, man. For me, really, it's in order as well. We need a CDM. We need a centre back. Arguably, then maybe a right back to challenge for Wan-Bissaka, and then a right winger, someone like Jadon Sancho.
Better off playing Dan James, but anyway.
This guy, who invited him here?
God. Do you know what? I can't wait to cover Arteta. I cannot wait to get into
You
depth.
put Alan Saint-Maximin in that Dortmund team and he'll get you Sancho numbers.
No, stop.
Oh my God.
Right.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm going to save all this slander on you, James.
Yes,
until we
please.
cover
Let's
Arteta.
just end it before he says something else.
Right, so I'm just going to say...
The truth hurts, boys. The truth hurts.
No, get out of here. I'm
No,
just
man.
going to say...
No, I'm going to kick you off the Zoom, man. I really will. Oh, man.
I'm just going to quickly say my positions. I think that first we need a defensive midfielder in terms of priority, a centre back.
Don't tell me you're saying Jadon Sancho as well.
A right-sided forward, and I think we do need a striker. I mean, I know we've got Cavani staying, but I still think long-term we need someone else. But that's just me.
I think that's next transfer window's problem. You know, there's a reason why we've extended his contract. You know, so it's not the priority.
I know. That's just my opinion.
Cool.
But yeah, no, I think that was good, boys. I think we covered plenty about Ole's time. I think it's clear to see where he needs to improve and where he needs to improve in terms of positions on the team. But yeah, I think that will be all for this week. Thank you guys for listening in. Obviously, the Euros start next week, so we might be covering some of that as well as talking about other topics. So just be sure to tune in, and I will pass it on to someone else.
Yes, so make sure you guys check out our Spotify at The Football Draft and our Twitter, Ross.
Our Twitter is at TFD2021. Give us a cheeky wee follow, and sure, send us a DM as well to get in contact. Alright?
Excellent stuff. Alright. See you guys later.
See you later.
All the best.